Hello everyone, thank you very much for being here today. Today is our art talk number 39. We are going to repeat a talk that we were not able to make it last week with fantastic artist Lluís Lléo from Barcelona. He is now in Barcelona. Last week he was opening his exhibition in Berlin, and we are delighted to talk to him about his life and his career, to somehow represent his work here in America through another great art dealer. Her name is Molly Parkerson, and she has sort of been the bridge between Lluís and I. We are delighted to welcome him back again today from his, and we're going to talk about his life, his career, and everything else. Let's see. Lluís.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well.
So sorry about last week.
No. We are delighted to be able to do this talk again about your work, about your life. I was just mentioning to everyone that last week you were opening this spectacular exhibition in Berlin that
Yes.
I guess is almost sold out. It was one of the first exhibitions that opened in the world, I guess.
Yeah, it was the first opening in Berlin after the confinement, yes.
And what is the name of the gallery so people can go and see it if they see us in Berlin?
The name of the gallery is McLaughlin Gallery. It's in Berlin Mitte, and it's the first show in the gallery and the first show in Berlin. So they started the gallery with my show.
How amazing, full of
Yeah.
color and passion.
Yes,
That's great.
thank you.
I also mentioned that, we met through Molly Parkerson,
It's,
a very
yeah,
dynamic art dealer.
absolutely.
You have done incredible projects and that we're going to be able to review later. Among of them, this exhibition that you guys did in New York and over Park Avenue with this fantastic installation. So you're coming from a family of artists,
Yes,
and
yes.
so it was impossible to be an engineer, or they pushed.
Almost impossible. Well, I always was bounded between two things, which was the totally artistic brain of my father and the totally grounded brain of my mother. No? So, and that was very helpful because I saw both sides of the story. I saw that an artist needs a practical mind also. That to be an artist, you have to be connected to reality. That you can not only be an artist, no? I mean, you don't work for yourself alone, no? You work for, it's a gift to be an artist. It's something that you give to the rest of the people. And you have to think about who is going to see your work sometimes, no?
Yeah, I think artists are very generous because every paint that they do, they let it go. It's almost let go a child in a way.
Well, there is. I mean, almost everybody in our society do something in exchange for, no? For a purpose.
Yeah.
And we kind of like flowers in the field, you know. We are pretty much useless, but it's nice to see it. It's nice to see us sometimes. It helps. It makes you stop. It makes you think. It makes you feel. But sometimes in moments like the one we are living today in the world, you wonder, are we really useful? Are we totally useless? Or the world needs something else? I don't know. I'm
I
I'm
think it's,
I'm very confused about that,
it's
you know.
definitely useful because, I got to tell you something. It's just a funny comment. In my closet, everything is white, blue, or black. Different shades of blue. That's the maximum
Yeah.
that I can get. I only have one pink shirt. And seeing your painting today in my house inspired me to happiness.
Well,
I
the painting looks very good with your shirt. Thank you so much.
thank you very much. So I decided to go color because we're gonna review your amazing work and see that the work that you have done through the years, with
Yes.
this amazing technique that you use. Tell us about this technique so people can understand how difficult it is to achieve it.
Well, since I grew up and I was born in a family of artists, I had a very serious and very good formal education. No? So very young, I know how to draw very well. I know how to paint because my father taught me how to do it, and I was surrounded all the time by him, by his friends, by my mother that sometimes did some ceramics also. So knowing lots of things about technique helps you to do lots of things when you grow up as an artist, no? In other words, if you are very good at doing surgery, you are ready to do any kind of surgery. If you only specialized in one type of thing, sometimes you get too limited. No? So coming from the formal education, I visited lots of museums with my parents. I visited lots of churches. I visited lots of studios, and I end up knowing how to look at things. And at some point, I decided to go to New York for a little while, and that little while lasted 30 years. No, not bad.
30 years in New York.
30 years. And at some point, I thought, what I can do that nobody else can do. And what I can do that nobody else can do is bring to New York the things I saw when I grew up, the Romanesque churches, the painting, the stones, the frescoes, the watercolor, something that I saw that probably nobody else have seen. And that's how I started to develop this technique of the big portable and movable pieces painted either in huge structures of steel covered with concrete, or later I started doing the big stones painted that were the ones showed in Park Avenue.
Yeah.
And in a way, my work always is looking back and looking forward. No? I always need to think about the past to invent my future, always.
Wow, what a great...
I have a history behind, and I cannot deny it. Huh?
Yeah, which is fantastic because, you know, the transparency on the work and at the same time, you know, the creation of this depth, you know, that you use with this fresco technique, which is pretty much a lot of the base of your work. It is
Yes.
actually quite romantic in a way, you know, the colors are very subtle, you know, and they create that sort of dream, you know. Do you dream in color?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure, but what I can tell you, it's one of the reasons that I probably choose all that complicated technique. I mean, it's a very simple technique, but to make it requires a special materials, a special support, a special places. It's because since very little, I envision art as an adventure where risk happens. I mean, for me, being an artist without risk, being an artist without the sense of adventure, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, I don't like it. I need the thrill of going back to the studio and opening the studio every day and having a different experience every day. That's my life, and that's why I choose things that are a little bit complicated to do, because that makes it more adventurous even, no?
Yeah, there is something about architectural, you know, and many way, you know, and also in a way when you start to work in public places, which we're gonna go now to see these amazing installations that you have done all around the world, you know, you see that the compose of the image is not only, you know, the painting can be converted into a sculpture, you know, and you have, you know, you have to be somehow an architect, an engineer, a little bit of everything, you know, and the mix of the paintings to last forever outside, all of that, it creates a difficult work.
You know, I had a very architectonical mind always. Always I had a head that was very compartmentalized, very well organized in a way. And I always wanted to be an architect because I thought architecture is, for me, the most beautiful of the arts. Is the ability of a person to design a space where you wake up and you go to sleep every day, that changes your life. But I was a very bad student because I was thinking about painting all the time, and I couldn't be an architect, but architecture is always present in my work now. And then obviously the visit of the churches and the murals and the big frescoes in Italy, in Pompeii, for example, no?
Oh,
The houses of Pompeii, that you live in a place that is totally painted and the floor is a mosaic. Obviously, it's like the classical music, which is like the perfect music coming to you in every direction. No? To me, that's what it's closer to music. That for me is the absolute form of art. No, it's the thing that it surrounds you and fills you and you get lost into it. And
what kind of
sometimes
music do you listen
doing
when you
so,
paint?
sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. What kind of music do you listen when you
I
paint?
don't listen. I don't listen to music when I paint in general,
Wow.
because what happened to me is that I discovered that depending on the kind of music I listen to, my work afterwards gets very much affected by it. It's a form of drug, you know. It's like taking drugs that put me in a place that sometimes is a little bit unreal, and then when I see the work, I don't recognize it very well.
Oh, yeah.
So in general, I prefer to listen to talk programs. Like in America for 30 years, I listened to National Public Radio,
It's the best.
and I learn a lot by listening to politicians, to writers, to philosophers, to artists, to any kind of people, because I think the big mystery of our world is in the human brain. No, what makes us different is the brain, and everybody has a different one. And Public National Radio was a master on extracting things from the heads of amazing people. No, they say good interviews are based on good questions, and those were very good questions. They asked really amazing questions. I mean, it replied a little bit, quite a bit with Charlie Rose. Unfortunately,
Oh,
we don't have
I,
him
I
anymore.
miss I miss it like you cannot imagine. I used to.
But obviously, you learn amazing things about people listening to Charlie interviews, right?
Yeah, for me, one of the best ones, and I mean, so sad what happened.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What he did is unforgivable, but it still is a genius.
It's a
Interview.
genius, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So you start first to paint, then from the paint, the work on paper develop, or it was first paper and then paint.
Everything comes. I loved to draw when I was very little. No, I was a very good draftman. I did to pay my studio in Barcelona when I was 18 years old. When I rented my first studio, I did it by doing portraits of people and getting paid by it. No,
No kidding.
I love to do portraits. I love to draw. I love it. It's something. There's something extraordinary about it. From that, everything came out. Everything came from drawing, then paper, then painting, and later I got into the stone. But the stone is not really sculpture. The stone, it's painting on stone, because what I wanted to see was color outside, right? I wanted to see paintings outdoors, and that was the reason why Park Avenue, we got the project in Park Avenue so fast, because nobody have seen that before, no? The powerful colors in the middle of the street, and the fact that you have a front and a back, and basically were paintings in the middle of New York. No?
Yeah. No, they're extraordinary. Tell me something. It was the first outdoor project that you did, or many of them
No,
have.
that was the biggest one. That was very big. I mean, I did the 22-year installation. No?
Retrospective of your work.
Before me was Botero, Picasso, Giacometti, you name
Wow.
it, Louis Nevelson, Louis Bourgeois, and and I saw those installations so many times, and I always thought, what a beautiful projects and what a beautiful installations and what a beautiful sculptures, no? And a friend of mine told me, Luis, have you thought about applying for that project? I said, I'm not a sculptor. He said, no, but that's why you should apply. And the name of the project and the name of the application was Why a Painter in a Project of Sculptures? No? Why? And that's what they love about that project. And obviously, it was very popular, it was very beautiful, and somehow it changed my life. No?
Yeah. Where are these pieces now, by the way?
These pieces are in Barcelona now. The city of Barcelona invited me to install them permanently. And 3 of them belong to Banco de Sabadell, who paid for sponsor half of the project. And the other 3 now are going to be in Barcelona forever. I mean,
Where
finally,
in Barcelona?
in front of the Royal Palace in Pedralbes, one of the
Okay,
most beautiful
beautiful place.
places.
You know,
Yes, yes.
I have a very special relationship with Barcelona because after I left New York, I actually went and I spent a sabbatic year in Barcelona and I made
Uh-huh.
great friends and I miss very much the horchata de chufa and the
Yeah,
fantastic food that
yeah.
Barcelona have and great friends. And when I came back to Miami, to New York, to America, I actually moved to Miami and opened my first gallery, and then is how I got involved. But you know, 2 years ago, we opened an exhibition in Barcelona, a big retrospective of Horse Be Horse. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just so amazing to see what a vibrant city, what a great city that supports arts. And always for me, when I go to Europe, Barcelona is a first stop. So I hope I get to see them at the
Absolutely,
largest.
absolutely, absolutely. It's a very relevant place. It's a very beautiful place. And actually, it's very funny because it's the place where I learned to go with bicycle when I was 6 years old. In Christmas, I got a little bicycle when I was 5 or 6. And the first time I got in a bicycle was in front of the Palacio de Pedralbes because it was flat and clean and perfect. And so many years later, I came back to install the pieces in that place. No? It's a very
How
beautiful
divine.
place.
How
Yeah,
divine.
yeah.
Um, so there, you know, the colors, the pigments of the color. Do you have a particular palette that you got? You know, we know you
No,
got inspired by
no,
the French, but it's just a.
no. It's like you fall in love with a color and you go on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Exactly. There was a period that everything was yellow, and the particular blue happened in Costa Rica, where I went very often when I was living in New York. And one day, this image now that you see in the screen is the first installation I did of stones. It's a permanent installation in an amazing collector house here in Girona. And he was the first one to see. I had tiny little stones in the studio full of dust, and this particular collector, who's an amazing collector, came to my studio and said, Luis, what are those little stones? And I said, I don't know. I would like to make them big one day. And he said, come home tomorrow. And he has a fantastic Chillida. He has a fantastic Picasso. He has a very, very important collection. And he said, where would you like to install this? And I said, here. And now the ones you see in the screen that are blue are his son in outside Paris. And those blue ones, particularly in this garden with the Japanese almond trees,
Oh,
almond trees or raspberry trees or whatever, those blue ones are the ones that won the project in New York because they found it extremely beautiful. No?
there.
But as I was telling you, my trips to Costa Rica, one day in the mountains, I discovered a big blue morpho butterfly, which is this huge blue butterfly. And I was totally taken by that. And I decided to call the project and to call this collection the Morphos Nest because I always imagine those blue butterflies nesting in my blue stones. No?
Absolutely. You know, they're so relaxing, and you know, I'm a big fan of Yves Klein, and somehow I find that blue, you know,
Yeah,
so relaxing. It's
yeah.
vibrant, but at the same time, it gets you on focus. You know, having you work on paper, on canvas, and now installing these major installations all around the world, what are the projects for the beautiful, the future?
Well, the future, there is a big project in Switzerland for a private collector. We're gonna do a very big Japanese garden, believe it or not, together. Because one part of these installations is that it is very beautiful to work.
I lost you for a second. Let's take a look. We're gonna be back. I'm sure sometimes Instagram is a little bit tricky. And these are the moments that I suffer, you know, throughout this interview. But we are just enjoying the amazing, well relaxing to see these amazing images, you know, and go. We're gonna go live with him again. You know, we just lost him for a second, but it's coming up. It's up again. That's perfect.
See,
Great.
okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we were talking about the installation that you're going to do in Switzerland.
So one of the exciting things about this is that I like the relationship with the collector. No, I like to hear what they want to do. I like to hear where they want it, because usually when you work for a collector, they know their place better than you do. No, so it's very good to follow a little bit their advice. No. And it's very good to don't have any preconceived ideas and to try to follow them and find a common ground with collectors. No? That's the big installation. Then there's a traveling show of very large papers that is going to travel to several museums in Spain and Europe. And hopefully, it will be a beautiful project someplace, somehow, with Aboriginal painters in Australia. But this is still in the works.
Yeah,
still in the works.
I think we're gonna talk to Mali, because I think with Florida arts and public places needs to have your sculpture, because they're
well with Mali we worked. That was extremely exciting. And it didn't happen finally, but we were working on a children ground playground with my pieces. So basically, were my pieces, and one had a tree house on top, the other one had a slide on top. So basically, the idea behind that is that if children can be near artwork and can touch it and can live with it, most likely they're not going to be afraid anymore about it, and they're gonna consider that having art in their lives is a normal thing, right? And that was a project that was very beautiful in Miami, where we were working on that, and for one of these complicated American things of papers and permits and papers, it didn't happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen because it's really beautiful.
I'm sure Mali is very persistent, and we have the director of public and art places is a very young, vibrant girl, and I'm sure she would love to have it.
Absolutely.
You know, then when these pieces travel, you know, wow, they're very heavy.
They're heavy.
Yeah.
Each piece is about 8,000 to 9,000 pounds.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And now you're having all these projects around, and you keep painting in your studio every day.
Yes.
You know, and then it is amazing how to see them. You know, to see you when you lay down the pieces, the size of the pieces when you work either in paper or on canvas. What material are you in love more lately? You know,
Paper, extremely in love with paper. There's something, you know, one thing that it's been going on through my mind, but one thing that happened lately with all this world crisis, no, is that things are extremely fragile. Eh? I mean, things can fall and disappear in a second. Things that we thought we would never would disappear, and this is something that I always kind of had in my mind, but it became very, very, very obvious when I saw the 9/11 towers falling
Yeah.
down in front of my studio at the other side of the river. No, everything as big as you think it is. Life is fragile, and we live in a very fragile world. And I love to work with paper because why not learn how to use and deal with very fragile things? No?
Yeah, that's
It would. I think it's interesting to the tenderness you need to work with paper. You have to be careful. You have to be aware. You have to be you have to be very sweet when you work with paper. And I think it's something that teaches you and you learn from it, because at the end of the day you have to be sweet to survive in the
yeah.
world we live in.
Which doesn't happen with stone, you know. Even so, you know, it's also everything could go down. You know, I think the fragility of the paper, it reminds me very much the skin of,
Yeah,
because you get a
exactly.
paper and it's such a fresh, soft, beautiful material, and as soon as you intervene it, it almost like age on time, like we all age, you
Yeah,
know, and you see these
yeah,
amazing wrinkles around, but
yes,
this the solid piece of painting that you put inside,
exactly.
it reminds me very much like a part of our skin. You know, when I saw you
Yes.
print, that's what I got.
Also, what all these super big papers, I mean, they are 12 and 13 feet high, these papers, and they're made of smaller papers. And this started with a conversation with my kids. No? One day I had Noah, my son, who's now 14, in the studio, and he asked me, how would you make a very big piece? And I said, well, it's very easy. You just start and you do it by adding small pieces together. And all you need is time, but all the special thing you need is commitment. No? Commitment. You have to have the commitment with your work. And the paper put me in a way very close to the children's brain, where that's why I started doing these very big papers just with pencil and ink, because for my kids it was understandable, the process. It was, you see, your pencil, your ink, and your paper can produce this, and they understood very well that. And for me it was very important for them to understand that life accomplishments come from wanting and trying hard to make them happen. No?
That's great. You know, when I see you working, you know, and the images that we have, I understand that, you know, how you are able through the time to deal with fragility, and also with, you know, being able to paint in front of you or on the floor, you know, so
Yes.
you adapt in time. Do you think that's the 30 years in New York that teaches everybody to adapt to everything?
Probably, yeah, very much indeed. And also what happens in New York is that every time you see a show, every time you went to Chelsea, it became very obvious where you were. No, it became very obvious that that was the world stage. No? Everything was in front of you, and it became very obvious who you were and how much you need to work to become a little
Make
closer
it
to those
perfect.
people you admire. Yeah,
Yeah, to make it perfect, absolutely.
yeah,
You know, it is incredible because we see these when the exhibition was in New York. You know that I actually get the chance to see it 2 days before it went out. You know, I traveled especially. You know, I was just amazed to see these massive sculptures and pop. You know, being part, and at the same time, it was the softness of these colors and lines of paper that don't have an end or a beginning or
yeah,
any
yeah.
explanation on the form. You know, it's just, I guess the color take you to create the form in a way. When you see them like this, you know, you don't really understand where the ink is going to go
Yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a very strange thing because everything came from intuition. No? I remember reading that quote from Einstein that said, intuition is the purest form of intelligence. No? And sometimes you have to go back to when you didn't know anything about anything, to understand things. And when I got that project and I was doing the stones, I tried to get my brain clean of everything I have learned in my life, and I only wanted to make sure that my emotions and my energy were there. And I knew that by being just closing my eyes and going forward, everything would be all right. It was very scary. It was a very scary project because everything you do publicly in America, especially in New York, is extremely scary because you have to sign papers, the insurances. It's dangerous, no? It's dangerous. It's extremely expensive. It's very tense, like everything that happens in New York. And I survived by kind of doing a certain type of meditation with my stone, and somehow I knew it would be all right. But it was a difficult project because I was basically alone with Mali and with some friends, and it was not easy. It was not easy, but faith was there, no? Faith was there, and I envisioned it very well, the project at the end. And what have to happen happened finally. That's the way it is.
I'm sorry, my phone is just got suddenly out of battery. I apologize. I forgot to connect it. But anyway, I'm sorry. So what is, what is happening with the deafness? You have this family that somehow inspire you, but who do you get inspired by on a daily basis?
By art is not a thing that inspired me tremendously. It's not my source of inspiration usually. I find the inspiration more in anonymous people. I find my inspiration in a conversation with totally an intellectual person. I love to talk to, now I live in a village outside Girona, and I love to sit in a restaurant or a bar at night and talk to somebody that maybe is a mechanic and talk about I don't know what. And somehow that's very refreshing, and it's humbling to talk to people. It's very humbling, no?
Yeah. And
And
I think information, that we have put in our brain that when we speak with somebody that doesn't know anything about us or anything about what we do or how we make it, it's actually quite fascinating.
it is, and it's happened the same with kids, no? When my kids come to my studio, or used to come to my studio, they come less now because they're very busy doing their things. But their opinion is extraordinary because they're always right. They're always right. And in my studio in Brooklyn, the one that was always right was the doorman. The doorman was a Dominican guy called Jose that was 85 years old. And when he said the painting was good, the painting was really good. Why? I don't know why, but I mean,
dormants in New York are just a library of information. We have this amazing painting that is one of the big first ones, right?
yes.
Tell us about that.
This is a painting. It's a series called Quattrocento. This is the first paintings I did when I arrived to New York. And this is when I realized that the only way to do something personal in New York was to talk about my life, to talk about what the things I've seen. And I tried to reproduce somehow the Romanesque painting and the Renaissance painting. A little bit, my dream was what happened if Giotto or Cimabue takes the plane and lands in New York? No? What happened if a Renaissance artist arrives here and sees this? Because for me, that I had the studio at the other side of the Brooklyn Bridge, and I crossed the Brooklyn Bridge by bicycle every day for nearly 30 years. One thing that happened to me is that the East River, the light, the sunset, sometimes look like Canaletto, sometimes look like Sunset by Monet, sometimes look like the whole history of art came through my mind every time I crossed that river. No, in a way, I thought New York probably today is what Venice was in the 15th or 14th century. No, the place, the marketplace where everything happens, where everything gets exchanged, with Marco Polo starts his trip to Asia. No, somehow there's a very romantic thing about New York that, and there's a lot of water around New York, and that made me think about Venice, about Italy, about Renaissance, about Giotto, Cimabue, Piero della Francesca, Frangelico, all these artists, no? And in a way, then you see Ellsworth Kelly, no? Or you see Frank Stella, or you
Absolutely.
see Rothko, obviously,
Roscoe.
and suddenly you're watching a Renaissance painting with a zoom, no? Basically, it's the distance where I don't think any of those artists were abstract. These artists were another way of looking at reality, no?
Yeah. And I think it's impossible to clear the layers of information that you have grown with, and to forget your past because at the end you repeat it. I think, you came to New York with so much information, surrounded by your family being artists, and then seeing all these wonderful constructions and frescoes, and then trying to find a timeline between who
Yeah.
you were and where you want to be. And
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened to me. My work, if you have to explain it, my right foot is in Europe, my left foot is in America, right? I lived half of my life in Spain. I lived the other half of my life exactly almost in America. And I have this combination of two things in my work. It's 50% European, 50% American. Totally, absolutely, totally.
European style, American practicality, I guess.
And also the looks of it, because I love the technique and the elaboration, like some of the European painters of the late 20th century, But also I was very shocked by looking at Jasper John's flags. I thought it was so simple and so powerful, or Kelly, or Clifford Steele, or Barnett Newman, all these extremely simple, apparently simple things that are so powerful, no? And in Europe, to make something powerful, we make it very complicated. That's one of the things I
Okay.
learned in America, that the Americans are less dramatic than Europeans in general, and that helps sometimes.
That helps sometimes. Yes, it's true. It's fantastic. Although we don't know each other, and I know you through Mali's experience with you. I was very fascinated with your work when Mali had the exhibition, and of course now we are delighted to represent a couple of pieces in our web pages, and to be able to show it to the world in a different context, which is online, which is
Yes.
actually quite difficult. I remember we sold one piece of yours not long ago to a collector in California, and they were just absolutely taken by,
Yeah.
and they just joined the chat now because they were very interested to know more about you, and they saw the installation in New York. And what they say to me was that they brought so much peace to them, to their house,
That's it. That's
even though it was
interesting.
a colorful piece.
Well, I'm not totally in peace myself, but for some reason, people tell me sometimes this. Probably one thing that I recognize is when I work, I need to produce a place where I would like to rest a lot. So when I do the stones or the paintings or the drawings, if I cannot live on them, I don't recognize them. In other words, I make places where to stay, where to rest your body, or to rest your mind, or to rest your soul. But definitely, I paint to be able to create places that don't exist for me, and I feel fortunate, and I feel happy to be able to produce them. And obviously, the best thing anybody can tell me is that they feel peace in front of my painting, because nowadays it's very hard to feel peace in front of anything.
It is. It is. Everything have a political message, or a
Yeah.
race message, or a sex message, or the whole.
Well, and everything is extremely complicated, no?
Yeah,
Everything is extremely
yeah.
complicated.
The whole purpose is how to shock you.
Probably,
Really?
probably,
Why?
probably.
You know, well,
Yeah.
you know, what is, you know, Instagram give us such a short time. What is the dream that you haven't achieved yet that you are working on or you want to start to work on after this pandemic finish?
Well, I worked the whole confinement because my studio is here in the countryside, and I was one of the only. I mean, I saw this place totally empty, and I was able to work every day from 9 to 9 sometimes. My dream, my dream, it's always been the same. Is the dream that my father teach me. That someday there's a kid that wants to be a painter because saw my paintings. That's my dream.
You know,
If there's somebody that wants to paint because or wants to do stones or wants to do something because seeing my work inspire that, I would be very happy.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
That's a very beautiful message. You know,
yeah,
it's you know, my collection and my passion is 90% photography and
yeah.
10%. So I have so short amount of painters, you know, in our gallery. But when I choose them, they have to be extraordinary as you are. So
Thank you so much.
we are very grateful and very honored to have your work, you know, and we hope we continue to keep showing more of your work. You know, everything is
Absolutely.
already everywhere now. You know, we keep asking you for more work, but everything is sold or everything is in
No,
gallery.
well, it's traveling. It's a busy time, but you'll get it very soon. I
I
promise
believe.
you.
Thank you so much. You know, we really, you know, I'm so delighted that we were able to have this opportunity to kind of like talk to you, and I wish you the best, you know, in all the new projects that you are doing.
Same
Uh,
to you.
I have a last question. That piece in the back that you have,
Mhm.
tell me a
Yes.
little about it.
That's I went to see a show of Philip Gaston in New York at the McKee Gallery, and I
Okay.
realized that most Philip Gastons have a light bulb hanging, right?
Hmm.
Then I went to see a show shortly after of Francis Bacon in London, and almost all of them had a light bulb hanging. And then in a benefit auction of the Drawing Center in New York, I did one of these papers with they're called mil luces, no, thousand lights, right?
Yeah.
And I did one of these works on paper, and Jasper Johns bought it for his collection.
Wow.
And then I thought, well, like this one you're showing now,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. That we
maybe
have a little
maybe
brother.
maybe I should keep doing light bulbs. It's also a way of saying that if you don't have light, you don't have life, no? And that's basically the title of the show in Berlin. All shadows belong to the light. In other words, there are shadows because there is light. So don't worry. The problem is would be if there were no shadows, but shadows are produced by light, and light comes and goes, but it's always there. No?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity to talk to you. You know, I'm sure when people start to Google and they're gonna see that you are in the major collections of art in the world, and they're gonna review the Park Avenue installation, and I hope they come to our website and purchase one of your work.
Would be fantastic.
And I thank you again very much. Tomorrow, I just want
And
to.
thank you so much for wearing the beautiful pink shirt because that makes my painting look really good. Huh?
Oh, that's so kind of you. You know, I just wanted to let everybody know, and as well as you, that tomorrow we're going to have another great interview with a incredible performing artist from Colombia, Maria Jose Arjona. You know, her work is in many places around the world, and we're going to talk to her from Bogota. She was chosen by Marina Abranovich as one of the 12 people who actually performed with her during many months at MoMA. You know, her work. You know, she's a very serious artist, and I hope you can join us tomorrow. And thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you, Juan Carlos.
All my
So nice
best.
to talk to you. Thank you to
Bye
all of
bye.
you. Thank
Ciao,
you.
ciao.
Bye bye. Bye bye.